Marjorie Taylor Greene is once again in the news, this time because she said no words on Twitter. They said that because she was spreading COVID misinformation, she was going to get a 12-hour ban. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene begins trending on Twitter because this is the perfect example of what is wrong with our politics. And it's a perfect example of, I guess, the bifurcation of culture in the United States. Because you know what this video is about because you clicked the title, and it's not about Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm just using her as an example to begin. The story is about a Minnesota Democratic lawmaker who actually, apparently doesn't even live in Minnesota, where he's supposed to be representing people, who is accused of multiple domestic violence issues. But this is not the major trending story. A Democrat Black Lives Matter activist who has at one point, at least, okay, I'm going to say allegedly or reportedly, gone to residential neighborhoods and was shaming some random white family. This guy, he gets pulled over. It turns out he doesn't live in Minnesota. He lives in Wisconsin, but he represents Minnesota. People are upset about that. This is not the major breaking news. A true test of our democracy. I'll give a shout out to Jim Hansen with this tweet. He said, this is the test of our legal system. A nonviolent trespasser with a Trump flag got 8 months in prison. These actual domestic terrorists either get real prison time or it's proof we live in a thought police state. Oh, it's proof that we would live in a narco tyranny. You may have heard the story. There were 2 individuals out during the Black Lives Matter riots, the George Floyd riots, and they were charged with handing out Molotov cocktails. My understanding is that they were granted bail, which is more than the insurrectionists were granted. There were many rioters on January 6th. You guys know my position. The rioters were bad. Some people doted about confused, not realizing what was going on because the doors were opened up. So that was a failure of the Capitol Police. And I don't think you can blame these people for having the cops open the door for them. But the people who are rioting and being violent, absolutely. But this is the test of our democracy. I say that somewhat facetiously because we are a constitutional republic, but you get the point. It's something the Democrats say all the time. It's a test of whether or not we are a free and fair country with true principles. And I think the answer is that time has come and gone. You know, we talk a whole lot about civil war or balkanization or whatever. And for those that aren't familiar, balkanization meaning just like the breaking apart of the country by ideological faction. It could also reference racial groups or cultural groups. But the way it's being used right now is because you've got left and right and up and down and different groups. It's more ideology based, but it's a reference to the breaking up of the Balkans. We talk about that. And I got to tell you, we have everything but the formalization of it. OK. You've got Texas and Florida. They clearly defied what Joe Biden wanted to do with the lockdown. South Dakota, obviously, the whole time. And you've got stories like this. And narco tyranny. What that means is the government will not enforce the law when it comes to the violent riots and the destruction. They won't enforce the law when it comes to things that negatively impact you. They will enforce the law when it is bad for you. Why? There may be 2 principal factions we refer to in the culture war, left and right. However, there are many sub-factions, but the establishment left is going to throw the book at anybody who is not part of their group, while Joe Biden clearly is only speaking to the left. And here we are. Here's a story. Search for Minnesota lawmaker's residency uncovers domestic assault cases. In searching for State Rep John Thompson's residency, Fox 9 has uncovered 4 cases of domestic violence with allegations Thompson punched, hit, and choked women. This guy is a Democrat. How is this not the major trending story? According to the police reports from 2003 to 2009, in some cases, the assaults happened in the presence of young children. Questions about Thompson's residency were raised after he was stopped by St. Paul police on July 4th for not having a front license plate. Thompson, who accused St. Paul police of racially profiling him, presented a Wisconsin driver's license during the stop, a license he has renewed as recently as November 2020, when he was elected to the Minnesota legislature. He is a state rep in a state he doesn't live in. That is incredible. How do you not know that? Like, don't you have to show your ID at least? Apparently not. You don't need an ID to vote, and apparently you don't even need an ID to run. The domestic violence case stretches back to October 2003 in Superior, Wisconsin, when Thompson was arrested after he allegedly struck his girlfriend in the face with an open and closed fist. Open fist? Like a palm slap? The woman's 5-year-old daughter witnessed the assault, which happened in a supermarket parking lot. Thompson's girlfriend said she and her child were homeless and declined to cooperate. Superior police said Thompson fled the scene and resisted arrest when he was found a short time later. Thompson eventually pled guilty in Douglas County, Wisconsin, to a reduced charge of disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Thompson allegedly attacked the same girlfriend nearly a year later, August 2004, at her Eagan apartment. Police arrived after a 911 hang-up call. She said during an argument with Thompson, he broke the phone cord and put both hands around her neck and began choking her. During the struggle, Thompson allegedly said, "I'll choke you until you can't breathe anymore." She said she ran out of her apartment screaming, but Thompson grabbed her and dragged her back into the apartment. She said she even tried to escape through a window. She told police Thompson became angry when she dialed 911 from another phone and began hitting her in the head, punching her in the face, and then he grabbed her and threw her into the kitchen table, which broke. She said 3 children, her daughter and Thompson's 2 sons, witnessed most of the assault. The girlfriend recounted to police that during an argument at the pool of the apartment complex the day before, Thompson allegedly belittled her daughter, calling her a series of expletives that culminated with F you, effing, F your daughter, I hope you both die. The woman said she and her daughter had recently moved to Eagan. She didn't know anyone, didn't have any money. Eagan police took her and her daughter to a domestic abuse shelter. The case was referred to Child Protection and the Dakota County Attorney to review possible charges. In September 2009, St. Paul police officers responded to a call of domestic violence involving Thompson and 2 women. Thompson and the women were fighting about a cell phone he received from another girlfriend. It is unclear from the report if this is the girlfriend from the previous cases. During that 2009 incident, according to the reports, as the yelling escalated, Thompson pulled out his male manhood in front of his girlfriend and 2 young children and said, "I'm the man, you can all S my D." Amazing. Wow. Not family friendly on this one. Thompson denied he ever exposed himself. The Ramsey County attorney declined to file charges. St. Paul police responded to another domestic assault involving a different woman in March 2010. The victim said she had been with Thompson for 11 years and they have 2 children together. During an argument, Thompson allegedly removed his manhood from his pants and told her to kiss the tip in front of relatives and children. Okay. You know what I'm going to say? There's a couple ways to look at this. Now, I think innocent until proven guilty. If they're not charging the guy, if they're not going after him, then I'm not going to say he's definitively guilty of anything. I will say, however, when a bunch of women who are not the same woman keep have similar stories, maybe it's like, you know, if you keep smelling crap, check your boot. That's kind of what it's like. Something's following this guy. They're going to say that the girlfriend told the police Thompson grabbed her on the neck with both hands and told her, "I'll choke you until your voice box stops." According to the police reports, the Ramsey County attorney declined to charge the case due to several issues. Delayed 911 call, poor witness info, and the victim stated she was fired up and doesn't remember who attacked who first. Thompson's attorney, Jordan Krushner, told Fox 9 by email that Thompson does deny the allegations. The end results speak for themselves. Krushner appears to be referencing that only one case resulted in criminal charges. Thompson is currently on trial in Hennepin County for a disorderly conduct case that stemmed from a visit to North Memorial Hospital, where Thompson and others were also asked to leave. Kushner added, "We are currently focused on the trial and do not have time to dissect these police reports from 10 to 18 years ago." Now, to be fair, the abuse cases and all that stuff, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of these being highlighted. So, okay, I can complain about, the trending on the news. This is old stuff. It really is 10 to 18 years ago. We got to let people grow up and move on and not hold 18-year-old stuff over their heads, because people change. They really do. I don't know if this guy changed, but I can say this. You know what should be news? This dude is a rep in Minnesota, and he renewed his Wisconsin driver's license in 2020. How is that legal? He should be removed from office. You represent an area where you don't live? Man, we got problems in this country, I tell you this. Right now, the big news is, Marjorie Taylor Greene's COVID tweets. Sure. That's what matters. Right now, the GOP House GOP prepares to file ethics charges against Rep. John Thompson. Prepared to move forward. They say, Minneapolis. House Republicans say they're prepared to file ethics complaints in the wake of several domestic assault allegations against DFL Rep. John Thompson if the House DFL doesn't take disciplinary action of its own. He doesn't live in there. He doesn't live in your state. Just ask him to leave and say, go back to the state you live in. How can we have this Kyle Rittenhouse story where they're like, he crossed state lines? And it's like, dude, Kyle Rittenhouse lived in Kenosha. He lived in Antioch, which is like 20 minutes from Kenosha. It's like the same area. The state line just incidental. This guy doesn't live. He didn't even live there. And he's representing there. That's much more egregious. All right. I go on to say, top brass in the Minnesota DFL, which is basically the Democratic Party, and the GOP party, the GOP party, and GOP means Grand Old Party, and its leaders are calling for, it's like ATM machine, right? Are calling for Thompson's resignation after reports emerged of domestic assault allegations going back as far as 2003. And of course, Thompson denies these. So I can respect the Democrats there calling for his resignation for sure. I think this should be bigger news. On Monday, Governor Tim Walz doubled down on that message, saying elected officials must be held to a higher standard. I agree. Quote, he said, I just want to be clear that the information that came out over the weekend involving multiple accusations, cases of domestic violence in the presence of children, just makes it so that I do not believe the rep can continue to serve us well. It's my belief when you get to a point where you're no longer effective or you're hurting the cause, it probably makes sense to move on. You know what, man? I'm not okay with that. I disagree. I 100% will. I'm going to defend this guy. Look, I don't know what he did back then. He had criminal charges. That was a long, long time ago. I will criticize this guy because apparently he showed up to this residential neighborhood screaming at some white family. Okay, that's not okay. I'll criticize the guy for that. But this is cancel culture. We found out that 20 years ago you did something. You were accused of something. Shut up with that stuff, dude. You don't like this guy? Let's make a real political argument about what's wrong with the guy. He showed up to someone's house. He got elected. Apparently, after doing that, I'm saying apparently allegedly because I want to be very careful here. But this video is going around where like this, they're saying this is the guy and he showed up to this house. He doesn't live. He's got a Wisconsin ID. He's a resident of a different state. Make that your focal point. I just don't like the idea they're going to be like 20 years ago. We've all done stupid things a long time ago. We were all young. We all made mistakes. This guy apparently he may have made some very serious mistakes, but only one of the cases had criminal charges, and I don't even know if he was convicted. But this is what we get. At any rate, regardless of whether or not my opinion matters, because I'm sure many of you are saying, no, we can't have this guy. He needs to be upfront about this stuff. We can't have a guy like this. Okay, if that's your case, if that's the case, this is the kind of thing that we should be seeing trend on Twitter, which we don't. We don't. I'm sure, maybe to a certain extent, people might see this in their like trending tabs, but people care more about Marjorie Taylor Greene, J.K. Rowling, and for some reason, the Klan right now. J.K. Rowling is trending. Why? Well, whatever. I guess you could, I get it. J.K. Rowling's very, very famous. But we have that Marjorie Taylor Greene story. And I'm just like, aren't there more important issues to talk about? That's what Jim Hansen said. Brent Share tweeted, no plea deal for pair of elite NYC lawyers who threw Molotov cocktails at NYPD cars during George Floyd riots. They're going to trial. This is the story from the Washington Free Beacon. Ivy League lawyers head to trial for firebombing cop car. The left-wing attorneys are accused of distributing Molotov cocktails during the George Floyd riots. Two New York City Ivy League lawyers will stand trial in March 2022 for allegedly firebombing a police cruiser and distributing Molotov cocktails during the George Floyd riots last summer. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's video of them literally doing it, but perhaps they're going to rely on I was wearing a mask. Can you prove it beyond a reasonable doubt? Okay. Yeah, it's a person wearing a mask. Am I going to take the word of the cops over this? Not really. But shouldn't this be something that we're actually talking about? Shouldn't we be concerned that there are doting fools who walked into the Capitol not really realizing what was going on, who are facing prison time and felonies? Shouldn't we be concerned that a woman in Alaska who didn't even go in the building had the feds come and raid her house? But these people, oh, you know what, man? I know. They very well may get convicted. Okay, let's be honest. When you go up against the government, they take issue with you. That's a narco-tyranny, right? We see all these riots. They burn down people's businesses. They murder David Dorn. And what happens? Sorry, nothing doing. But then when they throw firebombs at police stations, oh, man. If you go up against the government, they'll stop you. So the problem is the government, if the government is to exist and the taxes are to be justified, it needs to actually provide a service to the people. I've long said that, look, I'm in favor of taxes. I'm in favor of a progressive tax. I'm in favor of, social programs. But the idea there is that you are actually getting things for the money that's going into the system. Kind of like, we're all paying into this thing. We should get something out of it. It's not really happening anymore. No, we're in the anarcho-tyranny phase of the collapse of our society, in where we see these riots. The police can't protect us. The police can barely protect themselves. The police are being defunded, by the way. But law enforcement exists solely to serve the elite political class. Not if that's it. If we have a cabal of people and we're giving them money, and that's not government anymore. That's organized crime, narco-tyranny. It's like when the mobsters come to your business and say, "Hey, pay us for protection." From who? From us. It's like, oh, right. That's where we're at. They say the accused, and this is important, enjoy widespread support and sympathy from New York's legal and media elites. Rahman is represented by one of the city's best defense attorneys, and a former Obama administration official guaranteed her bail in the amount of $250,000. Both have been the subject of favorable profiles in New York Mag and NPR, among other venues. Do you see what is happening? That's what I said yesterday. I've been saying a lot. The bifurcation of this country, it's already done. People are like, the country will split or peaceful divorce. I'm sorry. As far as I can tell, that happened. These are people who had Molotovs. You can see the photos of them. They're alleged to have Molotovs. They're because innocent until proven guilty. I'll be fair. I want to be fair. And they get Obama admin officials defending them. This is the current state of America. We know it. Now, there are many Black Lives Matter and Antifa people who have been charged and have been convicted and are facing serious jail time. That's true. But hundreds of these people were cut loose. There was one instance where a guy was on video fighting with cops and they cut him loose. Like, oh, we don't have evidence. He was fighting with the cops. You could see it on video. I watched the video. But what about the people on January 6th? They're expanding the Capitol Police nationwide. So far, it's like California and then 2 East Coast offices, D.C. and I think Florida, so that they can start sending out. They're acting. The Capitol Police are going to act as an intelligence agency to go after wrong thinkers. Joe Biden, Jen Psaki. They're spying on your text messages. They're spying on your Facebook posts. They're calling on big tech to ban you cross-platform. For if you post misinformation, they'll ban you from all the platforms. But you need to understand, they post misinformation all the time. For years, they did it. Years. They're allowed, though. This is the direction we're going in because they control the resources. This is, you call it, it's a cold civil war, perhaps. But I think the only reason we would call it that is because it's 4th and 5th generational warfare. And again, I know many of you are probably familiar with that because I talk about it a lot. But this is a reference to information war, propaganda, manipulation. And that's the era we're in right now. I don't know if it goes hot. We've seen people killed. A decent amount of people killed in the street violence. But for the most part, the left and the Democratic establishment have been seizing the institutions for a long time. Now that they control them, they can wage economic and propagandistic war against their perceived enemies. They can take away your bank accounts. They can get you fired from your job. They can get you banned off social media so you can't communicate anymore. They can remove your ideas from the public space, and that's the power of social media. Of course, that's why so many on the left defended this, because they knew it was empowering them. And they knew that they were going to win. But I tell you this, the establishment elites will cut off these activists at a moment's notice. They will ban you. They will shut you down. Once they get rid of their rivals on the right, they get rid of their rivals on the left. Because you think Joe Biden likes the leftists? He's a corporatist. He's pro-oligarchy. He's not going to sit here and be like, yay, communism. Well, actually, he might be because it gives him a permanent position. But Joe's a little old doting fool. But in terms of the establishment elites, yeah, they're not going to sit here and be like, sure, we'll put ourselves at risk. No, they're going to keep empowering themselves. So here's where we're at. You see stories like this with this Democrat guy, and they say domestic abuse and all that stuff. And I'm like, that's cancel culture. Cancel culture to me is like when you go to someone's past and try and ban them for something they did a long time ago. But they do it to Marjorie Taylor Greene over and over and over again. And it's always breaking news. The Republicans even went after her because of things she posted on social media before she was even elected. Now, here we are. Your ideas will be removed eventually over a long enough period of time from the mainstream public space. What the establishment players are trying to do, what the elites are trying to do, what the CEOs of these companies are trying to do, is slowly erode away any classical liberalism, any right-wing perspective, any conservatism, any anti-woke. But they can't do it all at once. They know that if they did, they would immediately create a massive surge into another platform or potentially hot conflict. They do it slowly. Slowly over time, they ban one or two people. And then eventually the conversation starts to get reshapen. By slowly getting rid of conservative elements, they slowly remove those arguments and people normalize. They adapt. I mean, think about the idea that they're calling me far-right reactionary or conservative when I'm literally like, I believe we should have universal health care. So here's a way to describe it. Basic universal health care, which means you break your arm, you get the flu, you go to the doctor, they patch you up, send you on your way. Then for more acute illnesses, we would and chronic, we would need private supplemental insurance. But things like, insulin, you'd be able to just go to the doctor and be able to get those things. I'm in favor of that. That is not conservative. That is actually quite revolutionary. But they're calling that right wing because the conversation is being reshaped. I'm in favor of social programs. People say, Tim, you're not in favor of social programs. You're in favor of charity. No, I'm not. I worked for a bunch of charities. That's why I'm not in favor of them. I'm not going to get into that whole argument again. No, but I'm in favor of social programs. I just think the government is corrupt. Now, how you implement a non-corrupt government, don't ask me. I'm not even sure that's possible. I am much more libertarian. So ultimately, I do think that we need some kind of communal cooperation. But I certainly don't support the current iteration of it. They call that right wing. It's funny. I took the political compass test recently, and it said I'm left libertarian, like decently left libertarian. And I've had people comment like, Tim refuses to accept he's conservative. He keeps trying to double down on being left. No, I'm just not lying. I'm literally left libertarian is like, I'd like to live on a little hippie commune. You know what I mean? That's what it means. The problem is the current iteration of what the left is authoritarian. I don't like that. I like people sitting down like hippies sharing the fruits of their labor together, but it doesn't scale up. So ultimately where I find myself is for the personal, for what I want, for my house, for my family, for my community, is a more left libertarian, cooperative, free-spirited, free-loving place. But that would have to exist in an overarching right libertarian space. Because there's no such thing as you can't upscale left libertarianism. It's not possible without, I guess, religion. No joke, without religion. If everybody agrees with that religion, then you're going to have easy cooperation. That's what the woke want. But they have to forcefully indoctrinate people to make it happen. So I'll leave it there, man. I'm not gonna drag this one on much longer. The point is, this country is absolutely bifurcated. And it's about time people, started realizing they're not talking to you anymore. They're just trying to subjugate. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.